All right, so picture this. 1930s Hollywood. Secrets. Danger. And a PI, tougher than a $2 steak, carrying more baggage than a cruise ship. That's the world David Baldacci drops us into with A Gambling Man. And that's where we're headed for today's deep dive.
Ooh, I love the setup. And what's great is how Baldacci doesn't just tell you about post-war America. He makes you feel it.
Right, like you're practically sipping a drink at a smoky back room, waiting for trouble to walk in.
Exactly. And that setting, Baytown, California, it's a character itself, really. This mix of like sunshine and shadows, opportunity, and a whole lot of danger.
Totally. It's that contrast that grabs you. The Hollywood glitz, but underneath.
Okay.
Crime, corruption, like Baldacci saying, hey, things ain't always what they seem.
And the way he weaves in those historical details, it's masterful. The jazz music, the anxieties of the time, you can practically taste it.
That's like stepping into a film noir, right? But let's talk about our main man, Aloysius Archer. Not your average hero, this guy. Former convict trying to go straight as a PI. Got to be some serious inner turmoil there.
Oh, absolutely. He's battling his past constantly, wants to do good, but keeps getting pulled back to that darkness. But here's the thing. Baldacci doesn't shy away from Archer's flaws.
Makes him real.
Right.
You'd think a flawed hero would be hard to root for, but...
But with Archer, it's different. You see that struggle, that desire to be better. It makes you want him to win, despite the rough edges.
Like, we're invested in him outrunning his past as much as he is.
Yeah.
Now, we got to talk about the firecracker who enters the picture, Liberty Callahan. Former showgirl, sharp as a whip, and definitely no damsel in distress. What do you make of their partnership?
I think it's electric. There's this instant chemistry, a spark that goes way beyond just working together. They challenge each other, push each other's buttons. It's kind of like
a game of high-stakes poker, where the bets are constantly raising.
Exactly. You just know their relationship could go in a million different directions. So how do you see Liberty impacting Archer?
I think she's the catalyst, right? Forces him to confront those demons, really look at his choices. It's like...
She holds up a mirror to him.
Yeah, and makes him ask, what kind of man do I want to be? All while they're trying to solve this tangled web of a case.
Speaking of which, on the surface, it seems simple enough. Archer's hired to investigate a big-shot politician in Baytown. But come on, this is Baldacci we're talking about.
Right. Things are never as they appear. I'm already sensing those layers, that underlying tension. Like, who can you trust? What secrets are they hiding?
Trust is a precious commodity in Baytown. Every interaction, every clue, it all feels suspect. You're constantly questioning motives, wondering who's playing who.
And that title, A Gambling Man.
Yeah.
I have a feeling those stakes are going to get a whole lot higher. What kind of twists can we expect without giving too much away?
Let's just say nothing is as it seems. Loyalties shift, alliances crumble, and just when you think you've got it figured out, bam.
Yeah.
Baldacci hits you with a curveball you never saw coming.
Okay, buckle up, everyone, because this is where the ride gets wild.
Absolutely. But what's amazing is that even with all the twists and turns, Baldacci never loses sight of the heart of the story. And that's what makes it so captivating.
Okay, gotta know more. But before we get too deep into Baldacci's style, let's talk about the themes. What really jumps out at you in A Gambling Man? Something that maybe even resonates with you personally.
Well, the one that hits hard is abuse of power. How people in positions of authority, they manipulate and exploit others for their own gain. It's like timeless, unfortunately. Still rings true today, you know?
Right. Makes you think about those in power and the impact their actions have on everyone else.
Right.
And I see that connecting to Archer's own struggles, those choices he has to make. Do you see it that way?
Oh, totally. And that leads us right into another big theme. Moral compromise. Archer's always wrestling with his conscience, trying to find that balance between justice and his own, personal code.
He's like constantly walking that line.
Exactly. And through that struggle, I think Baldacci's making us confront our own beliefs about right and wrong.
It's like he's holding up a mirror saying, what would you do? What lines would you cross? I bet those moral dilemmas just get more intense as the story unfolds.
Oh, you can count on it. What's even more interesting is how Baldacci ties these themes into Archer's search for purpose. He's haunted by his past, wants to redeem himself.
Make amends for those mistakes. But can he find peace in a world full of corruption, like Baytown?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think it taps into this universal human desire, that need to find meaning and purpose, even when the world seems stacked against you.
You hit it right there. Baldacci doesn't shy away from those deeper human desires, those struggles we all face in one way or another. That's what makes his writing so powerful, so relatable.
It's what makes you keep turning those pages. So what are your first impressions of Baldacci's style? What hooks you?
Well, for starters, his pacing is masterful. He builds the suspense so well, drops those clues like breadcrumbs, and then, bam, hits you with a twist you never saw coming. It's like,
He's playing chess with you, and he's always 3 moves ahead.
exactly. But it's more than just the pacing. It's how he creates characters, their backstories, their motivations. You get invested in their journey. You understand their complexities.
And don't forget those historical details. It's not just like facts thrown in, it's all interwoven into the story seamlessly. Makes it so immersive.
Okay, I'm hooked. And I know our listeners are ready to go deeper.
You know, one thing that's really cool is how Baldacci uses the history, like the whole post-war vibe, to make the themes even stronger. It's not just a backdrop, it's part of the story itself.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. It's like Archer's a veteran, right?
Yeah.
Trying to find his place in a world that's changed while he was gone.
Exactly. He's got the weight of his past, prison, the war, and now he's got to navigate this new reality.
Trying to find solid ground when everything feels shaky. And then there's the whole, like, societal pressure,
Yeah.
Post-war America, all about being a certain kind of man. How does that play into Archer's, like, internal struggle?
Oh, it adds this whole other layer of tension. He doesn't fit the mold.
Hmm.
Archer challenges those expectations. He's wrestling with his own ideas of right and wrong in a world that's kind of morally messed up.
He's a walking contradiction, right? Ex-con, but with this strong moral compass. It all circles back to that moral compromise we were talking about. What are some of the choices he faces that really test his values?
Well, without spoiling anything, let's just say he's constantly having to choose between doing the right thing and doing the easy thing.
Right. Like how far is too far? Especially when it comes to uncovering the truth.
And putting himself at risk. Which brings us to the title, A Gambling Man. What do you think Baldacci's getting at with that?
Well, on one level, it's pretty literal, right? He's a PI, always taking risks, playing the odds.
True. But I think it goes deeper than that. It's like Baldacci saying life itself is a gamble. We're all making choices that could lead to good or bad outcomes.
Ooh, I like that. We're all players in the game, but sometimes the stakes are higher than we realize.
And the choices we make, they reveal who we really are. Especially for Archer, with his past, the secrets he carries.
Every decision is a roll of the dice, huh? Could lead to redemption, or it could all come crashing down.
Exactly. So, I know you're a fan of Baldacci's writing. What is it about his style that keeps you coming back?
For me, it's how visual it is. He paints these scenes with words, like you're right there in the action.
Oh, totally. He uses sensory details so well. You can practically smell the salty air, feel the grit of the streets.
In the dialogue, it's so sharp, so snappy, it feels authentic to the time period.
It really does. Like, he captures how people actually talked back then. Adds that extra layer of realism.
And he balances those action-packed moments with these quieter, more introspective ones. Archer's always thinking, wrestling with his thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's that balance that makes it so compelling. You get the thrills, but you also get a glimpse into the characters' minds, their vulnerabilities.
It's like Baldacci's giving us a peek into what makes them tick. Their motivations, their fears, that human element,
Right. And without spoiling anything, can you give us a taste of the twists and turns? What kind of stuff does Baldacci throw at us?
Oh man, get ready. You think you can trust someone, and then bam, they turn out to be totally different. And someone you thought was shady might actually be the key to the whole thing.
It's like a roller coaster, right? You never know what's coming next.
Exactly. And with Baldacci, you know those surprises are going to be good, but there's also this depth to it, It's more than just a thriller.
Oh, absolutely. It sticks with you long after you've finished reading. So let's circle back to something we talked about earlier, that historical context. We've mentioned it a few times, but it deserves a deeper dive.
Totally. It's easy to think of the 1940s as all glamorous Hollywood and stuff.
Yeah.
But Baldacci doesn't shy away from the, less glamorous parts.
Yeah. He peels back those layers to show the social injustices, the racial tensions, all the stuff happening beneath the surface.
So how do those elements, shape the story he's telling?
They make it more real, more complex. He touches on things like how veterans were treated when they came home, the struggles they faced, and the role of women in a society that was still pretty traditional.
Wow. So he's using the past to shine a light on issues that are still relevant today.
Exactly. It's like a reminder that progress isn't always easy or pretty, and that even in times that seem good, there are always people being left behind.
Man, that's heavy stuff. Makes you think.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what makes A Gambling Man such a thought-provoking read?
It's not just about a PI solving a case. It's about human nature, about the choices we make when things get tough, and about that struggle for justice and equality.
It's a story that sticks with you. So before we wrap up, I want to go back to those characters, especially Archer and Liberty. Their relationship is so interesting, so much tension and unsaid stuff between them.
It really is. You can feel that chemistry, but there's also this hesitation, like they're both holding back.
I love that. It shows that even the toughest people have a soft spot, that need for connection. So what do you think draws them to each other, despite their differences?
I think they see a bit of themselves in each other. They're both survivors, outsiders in their own way. And under those tough exteriors, there's a shared vulnerability.
Like, they get each other in a way no one else does. So how does their relationship affect the case? Does it help, or does it make things more complicated?
Well, it's kind of both. Their connection adds this, like, emotional depth. It brings moments of tenderness and vulnerability into a world that's pretty dark and dangerous.
Yeah, those moments make it feel real. It's a reminder that even when things are rough, that human connection can be a source of strength.
Exactly. But those feelings also make things tricky. It can cloud their judgment, even put them in danger.
It's the classic heart versus head dilemma, right? Do they listen to their feelings or focus on the mission, even if it means risking their connection?
That's the tension that hangs over them throughout the book. And honestly, it's something we all deal with, trying to balance what we want with what we need to do.
Yeah, real life stuff. It's like even the toughest choices aren't always black and white,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to matters of the heart.
Right. Definitely. It's complicated. You mentioned earlier that Baldacci makes us look at our own values.
Mhm.
What about those themes of power, corruption, moral compromise? How do those resonate with you personally?
Well, for me, it's a reminder that we all have a part to play in making the world better. We can't just sit back and let injustice happen. We got to speak up, challenge things, fight for what we believe in.
I hear you. It's like Baldacci saying, don't be a bystander. Be a part of the solution.
Yeah. He's not telling us what to think. He's just making us think.
And engage with these issues. And that's what makes this book so powerful. It stays with you, makes you reflect, sparks conversations that go beyond the pages.
It's a story that makes you think about who you are and what you stand for. So before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to touch on something else you mentioned, Baldacci's use of language.
Oh, yeah. His writing is just so beautiful, so engaging.
I love his descriptions of Baytown. He makes it come alive from the glips to the grime.
Right. It's so vivid. You feel like you're walking those streets, feeling that tension in the air.
And the way he writes dialogue, every character has their own voice, their own personality shining through.
Yeah. It's like he breathes life into them through their words. Okay, I think it's time for our final thoughts on A Gambling Man.
All right, so we've gone deep with A Gambling Man. The history, the characters, the twists and turns. But now I'm curious, what's that one thing that really sticks with you after you close the book?
You know, for me, it's how Baldacci takes those classic noir elements, the tough guys, the moral gray areas, but then he adds this deeper layer of, like, exploring what it means to be human.
Yeah, it's like we're not just watching Archer work a case, we're right there with him as he tries to, redeem himself, battle his own demons.
Exactly, and that's what makes it more than just a good thriller. It makes you think, you know? Makes you consider the choices we make, the consequences, and whether there's hope even in the darkest places.
It reminds you that even in a world full of, bad guys and tough breaks, there's still room for compassion, second chances, the possibility of turning things around. And speaking of second chances, I got to go back to Archer and Liberty. Their relationship, it's so full of tension, all that unspoken stuff. Do you think they can actually find happiness together after everything they've been through?
That's the big question, right? Baldacci leaves us hanging a bit. I mean, they're so drawn to each other, but there's a lot standing in their way. Can they overcome their pasts, the dangers around them?
It's like they're constantly on edge, trying to balance their feelings with protecting themselves and each other. What do you think Baldacci's saying about love and redemption through their story?
I think he's saying that love can heal, can change people, but it's not always easy. Sometimes the ones who need love the most have the hardest time accepting it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, to trust, especially when you've been hurt before. Maybe that's the biggest gamble of all, letting someone in. So as we wrap up our deep dive into A Gambling Man, one last question for our listeners. Do you think Archer finds redemption? Does he get that peace he's searching for?
That's what I love about Baldacci. He doesn't give us all the answers. He wants us to think for ourselves, come to our own conclusions.
He's inviting us to keep the conversation going, right? To think about what's right and wrong, what it means to be human, all that good stuff.
And that's what makes it a great book. It sticks with you, makes you reflect, sparks discussions.
So if you're looking for a book that'll take you back in time, keep you on the edge of your seat, and make you think A Gambling Man is definitely worth checking out. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into this amazing novel. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.